But what I was trying to say is that, you know, there is a ruling class and there are people who are responsible for these kind of decisions. You know, there's an act of nature which we've seen happen, but in that act of nature there's also a response team. There are things that are supposed to happen. There are things that we are told that are in place. There are things that tax dollars supposedly pay for. There's a system, you know, there is the state, and the state is who is in control. And a lot of the things that happen, and I think a lot of things that happen get framed and the blame gets placed on the people, and it gets placed on, you know, act of God or whatever else. And some of it is that, like I said, but a lot of it is the state. And just to point out some of those things, for example, I was told by a source that the majority of people who are Coast Guard were volunteers, because the Coast Guard was told not to come. They were told that this was something that was local to Houston and that, you know, they didn't need to come out. They could stay and worry about their families, and they rescued their own families who weren't even near the water, and they left us here. And the majority of people who came here from the Coast Guard were volunteers because the state was not sending people in to assist. You know, you're seeing this narrative on TV where they're telling you all these boats came in and things like that. But when you're calling these numbers and you're actually on the phone, you have people telling you we don't have boats. There are no boats. And then you turn on the news and they're saying, you know, 1,200 boats have just been dispatched in this area. 100 boats have just been dispatched in this area. But we're not actually seeing that. So what you're seeing is the state controlling the narrative and making it seem like it's a very controlled effort. And again, it is a control effort. It is a control rescue. But in that control, we are under colonial control here in America as African people. And in that control, we are controlled. You know, the situations are not controlled for us. We are controlled. And we're controlled capital, controlled resources. So it's the same thing like with any kind of business. You know, they have some kind of room to lose some of these resources. And we are the resources that they were not afraid to lose in this flood. They felt that the life of their constituents were more valuable. They felt like the life of the ruling class was more valuable. And in that situation, they felt like the military was more valuable. And they rescued those people first and foremost. We even had a subdivision behind me, and we could hear the rescue efforts going on. And it's not to say that those people did not need help. But it is to say that there were probably about 6 boats in their area and none in my area. You know, and that area is a predominantly white community. It's a very rich community. There are high-rise houses back there, and they focused on that area first, and this is a fact. So it's not about anybody making it about race, because truly it's not even a race issue. This is a class issue. This is about being colonized Africans and living here in a country where there is no place for you. And when disasters strike, there is no place in the plan for you. If there is no place in the government for you, no place in the Constitution for you, there's surely no place in the plan for you for rescue, because you weren't intended to be here in the first place as a citizen with rights. So, and just another thing that we've seen was you have people here who are in Mexico, because Texas is Mexico. So you have people who are here in an extension of Mexico that is colonized by Europeans. White people are colonizing Mexico. And these people are afraid to call for rescue because they're afraid that the National Guard will come. And they're afraid of their immigration status, what will happen next to them. And this is Mexico. And I don't think that's like really implanting on people enough that this is someone else's land. Like, this is stolen land. And the people of this land can't even get help. Like, the indigenous people here cannot even get help. And then to see, like, I've seen someone posted online where you have people from the Navy and the military in Mexico who are coming here to help, to assist. And here where this is actually Mexico, where their people are here. Correct. They're settlers. You know, there's settlers here. And when a natural disaster happens, the settlers look out for themselves. They're not looking out for the indigenous people. And getting rescued was really just a matter of being in the right place at the right time and having the right neighbors. Because, again, my neighborhood, I don't live in a predominantly African community. I live in a mixed community where it's some white people and some indigenous Mexican people. But the majority are white people. And living in that neighborhood and the outcry of people, because even living in that neighborhood, boats passed me. And this is factual. Boats passed us. We had to actually wave a boat down when we were outside, but it wasn't until after the live feed that we even began to see boats come into this area. So it really was the people who brought the rescue efforts and the relief. It wasn't the state. It wasn't Houston. It wasn't the sheriff's office who told us to call Jesus and not to call them because they couldn't help. It was the people who brought the rescue. It was the outcry from the people saying that this is not right. And that's crazy in a situation where something is apparently not right, where you can see it from Tennessee, from New York, from Alabama, from Connecticut. All these people who are reaching out from all these different places, and they can see this from a distance that something is not right. And then you have the people right here in Houston, like you have these sheriff's offices, you have the fire department, you have the Coast Guard, and all these people who are right here on the ground and witnessing this travesty, and they're able to brush it off like it's nothing, and to decide and to pick and choose whose lives are valuable and what an emergency is, which is crazy to me. To be in 12 feet of water and for someone to say that's not emergent, and it's not in any way to downplay anybody else's situation, because everybody has different levels and degrees, you know, that's going on. But it's to say that an overall effort should be made to rescue everybody. And it shouldn't be based off of class. It shouldn't be based off of how much money you have. And to even deepen that, you know, during this crisis, capitalism was still alive and well. You know, people are dying. People are trying to get to safety. People are trying to get to high ground. And you have gas stations that are charging $8 a gallon for gas. You have gas stations and Family Dollars, the one across the street, that's charging $2 for one bottle of water. They're not selling cases of water unless you buy the case of water at $2 a bottle. That's about $48 for a case of water. That's what's going on right now in a survival time where people are dying. And people, you know, on the news, it's like they're portraying this message where, oh, Texas is coming together. This is what makes America great. This is what America was founded off of, which is a do for yourself attitude. And people who really are coming together there are some white people who are coming together. That's not to negate that white people aren't helping, because they are. But the white people are helping who are in a different place to be able to help. Our resources are stolen. African people can't really afford to do rescue efforts like white people can right now. We don't have boats. And it's easy to say, you know, why don't you have a boat? But a lot of black people can't even feed themselves on a daily basis. They can't even pay their rent. So it's ridiculous to ask questions like that. Why don't you have a boat? And the resources, you know, the allocation of resources, the stolen resources, the theft of resources plays a major role when it comes to things like this, when it's time to organize people and to figure out escape routes when it comes to disasters, you know. And the fact that black people don't have our own resources. And we can say that that's not the fault of black people, but it's not. Our resources were stolen from us. It's not like we're people who don't have resources and don't know how to get resources. But our resources are being stolen on a daily. Africa is being looted every day. And then when you have situations like this, African people cannot afford to be the ones who are doing the rescue efforts. So don't get me wrong. There are European people who are here and who are on the ground performing rescues. And a lot of them is charity work, and some of them is genuine concern and, you know, humanity. But again, they're able to do these kind of things because they have stolen resources to be able to come in boats and to be able to rescue us. So it's not that black people wouldn't want to do it, but it just shows to me the deepening of our need to organize, to come together as black people and to organize for ourselves. And not just for a disaster like this, but for everything, you know, for the police brutality, for anything that when it comes to the state, because the state is an entity. And everything the state does is to protect its own interests. And we're seeing that even here in Houston when they're talking about releasing, you know, levees and reservoirs and all of this stuff. Like, all these decisions being made, don't get it twisted. It's to protect the interests of the state. And even people are capital, and we are the interest of the state. So even when it comes to rescuing people, it's not about, you know, they didn't have time or they couldn't do this, because there are decisions that are made. And there are obviously degrees of, you know, severity, and there are maps. There are people who are constantly studying this. So it's not like when they released these levees, they didn't understand what was going to happen. They knew what was going to happen. And they did it anyways, because they decided who was valuable and who was not valuable. And I agree and understand what tough decisions that have to be made, but the black community is always at the tail end of these decisions, which makes it so imperative for the African black community to get ahead of things like this and to organize. And the African People's Socialist Party has already begun this by having an organization called the Black Ankh, which is an organization that is for the people, run by the people, accountable to the people, which is like a totally different thing than the Red Cross. So please don't donate to Red Cross. Please, if you want to donate resources, if you're still trying to figure out how you can help to help other people, if you're not here to be able to help with rescue efforts, if you want to know how to help people once they're rescued, you can donate to developmentforafrica.org. Go to the website, click donate, and that's the best way to get true resources to the people here in Houston. And we are accountable to the people, and we are the people. I was one of those people who was stuck in my home. So all resources allocated here are resources that will go back to the people, to help these people to rebound from these situations, because we've seen what has happened before with the state and floods also. So, you know, it's like it's only the tip of the iceberg. You know, with the state is one part that we're looking at right now, which is the rescue relief. But there's a second part that's going to come, which is the relief, you know, the relief efforts and trying to get people's houses back and get their lives back in order. And what we've seen from previous floods is that the state doesn't care. The same thing you see with rescues is going to continue. It's going to be a continuation of the story. It's going to be part 2 during the relief efforts. And we can sit here and, you know, a lot of people I see making comments saying that it's not a race issue. You're right. It's a class issue. It's a colonialism issue, but it's still an issue. And we can't negate the fact that there are disparaging differences going on in these communities and with these people. And it's not just coming from me. You can see it. You can see these people on these rooftops, and the news is not going to show it. They're not going to show you that they're only rescuing whom they want to rescue. You know, you watch the news and you see all of these people coming out of these houses, and, you know, they're so busy patting themselves on the back. They're so proud of themselves for such a good job. And we're still in the middle of the war, and the general is already awarding himself. Like, he's already putting medals on his uniform, and we're still out here dying in the middle of a war. And I don't know what kind of army you're a part of, but I wouldn't want to be a part of that kind of army. You know, it's selfish, and that's really what we're taught right now, is to be selfish. And we're taught to look out for ourselves. So seeing the outpour of the community, it just really shows you, you know, what we can do if we organize and mobilize ourselves to get these things done. Also, I wanted to say that another crazy thing that just shows that capitalism was alive and well during this time, to show that this is not just like an issue of natural disasters. This is a political question. Because during this time when people were being rescued, you still have an African mother, African woman, who's in the vehicle with me while I'm being rescued. And she's being rescued to go to work. Because she still had to go to work that day. Because they called her in to work. And she works at an assisted living facility. And it's in a nice part of town. It's majority European people who are well off. A pretty expensive assisted living facility. And she still had to go to work. She still had to go take care of other people and to do the same thing we've been doing since the days of slavery, which is just crazy to me because it's a natural disaster and they're telling people to evacuate. But African people, like, even deepening this, like, what was crazy to me is that African people don't even really understand the contradiction in being at work right now. When people are dying, you're leaving your family at home not knowing what's going to happen, because you really can't predict things like this with this weather. So you're leaving your family at home to go take care of somebody else's mother or somebody else's grandmother. And just to hear this African woman defending this, like, you know, it deepens the crises that we're in as African people, to have to go to work and to not understand that this system is crazy, that capitalism is crazy, that I have to feed my family by leaving them in the middle of a natural disaster, and to go to work and take care of somebody else's family, to be able to survive. You know, like, that just really shows that the state and the system was alive and well during this time. And again, I just wanted to repeat, the website was developmentforafrica.org. So if you're looking for ways to help afterwards, we're also going to be on the ground doing some relief work. We own a towing company, and assuming that all of our vehicles are okay, we are also offering services to people who need help. Like, once the waters go down and it's time for relief efforts and it's time to clean up, we would like to be able to help. We would like to help anybody who's out here who needs help and cannot get help. Because like I said, last year we seen how devastating it was with the flood, and going back to the black communities and seeing how these communities still had mattresses floating around, how they still had water up to their knees in these communities, how they still had their furniture and everything else out on the lawn. And then you come to the community where the white community is at, and you see that it looked like it hadn't even flooded. And this is factual. This is not something that people are making up. You know, this is a factual thing. And again, like I just said, Barbara, it's not about race. It's about colonialism. It's about being a people here in America who are under the rule of another people. And that's factual. That's not me making it about something that it already isn't about. Like, that's what it already is about. And that's what we're seeing unfold right in front of our eyes, is a system that doesn't care about black people, and that will